Before you ever see it with your eyes, you must see it with your mind. Before it shows up in your hands, it has to show up in your heart. Everything you admire in this world, every invention, every success story, every breakthrough, was once invisible. It lived as a thought, a picture, a quiet idea that refused to die. And the moment you understand that, the moment you truly grasp it, your life will never be the same again. Imagination is not childish. Imagination is not foolish. Imagination is not a luxury reserved for dreamers with no responsibilities. Imagination is the birthplace of progress. It is the engine behind every miracle you've ever prayed for. If you can imagine something greater for your life, that means you were built to pursue it. Too many people are living far beneath their potential because they've allowed reality to bully their imagination. They've let their current situation convince them that this is as far as they can go. They look at their bank account, their background, their mistakes, and they say, "This is it." But listen closely. Your circumstances are not your conclusion. They are just your starting point. Your imagination is proof that more exists for you. You wouldn't be able to dream it if it wasn't possible. You wouldn't be able to envision it if you weren't capable of becoming it. That picture you keep seeing of a better life, a stronger you, a more peaceful future, that's not fantasy, that's direction. Here's the truth most people never hear. Life will never hand you permission to believe bigger. You have to give it to yourself. You have to dare to imagine success before there's evidence. You have to walk by faith before there's confirmation. And yes, people will laugh. People will doubt. People will question your sanity. But they're not laughing at your future. They just can't see it yet. Imagination requires courage. It requires you to stand alone sometimes. It requires you to say, "I know where I am, but I also know where I'm going." And when you hold onto that vision long enough, your habits start to change. Your decisions start to shift. Your standards rise. You stop accepting less because you've already seen more. Let me be clear. Imagination alone is not enough. But nothing great ever happens without it. Imagination gives birth to belief. Belief fuels discipline. Discipline produces results. And results silence every doubt that ever surrounded you. Stop shrinking your dreams to match your comfort zone. Stop talking yourself out of greatness because the road looks hard. Hard does not mean impossible. Delayed does not mean denied. And struggle does not mean failure. It means you're in the process. The people who change their lives are not always the smartest or the strongest. They are the ones who refuse to let go of the picture in their mind. They protect it. They nurture it. They work for it even when nothing seems to be working. So today, I challenge you to do something bold. Go back to imagining again. Imagine without limits. Imagine without fear. Imagine without apologizing. See yourself winning. See yourself healed. See yourself successful. See yourself free, and then get up and move. Take action even when you're unsure. Take steps even when you're scared. Do something today that aligns with the future you see in your mind, because imagination is not just everything. It's the beginning of everything. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for approval. Don't wait for confidence to show up first. Start now, act now, believe now. Turn what you see in your mind into something the world can no longer ignore. Everything that exists in your life right now once existed as a thought. Before there was movement, before there was action, before there was evidence, there was an idea forming quietly in the mind. Imagination is the invisible foundation of every visible outcome. Nothing appears in reality unless it is first conceived mentally. Houses are built on blueprints, not bricks. Lives are built the same way. If you never allow yourself to imagine beyond what you see, you will always be trapped inside the limits of your current surroundings. The mind is the most powerful tool you possess, yet it is often underused because people are trained to focus on facts instead of possibilities. Facts describe what is. Imagination describes what could be. When you rely only on what you see, hear, or experience right now, you restrict your future to the size of your present. But imagination gives you permission to explore a version of yourself that has not yet arrived. It allows you to mentally step into rooms you haven't entered, speak confidence you haven't fully developed, and live a life you haven't yet touched. Reality often tries to silence imagination by presenting limitations. Lack of money, lack of support, lack of education, past mistakes, failed attempts, all of these whisper that dreaming bigger is unrealistic, but imagination does not answer to circumstances. It operates beyond logic, beyond statistics, beyond the opinions of others. That is why it is so powerful. It is the one space where nothing can stop you. When you consistently imagine a better outcome, your brain begins to search for ways to align your behavior with that image. Imagination shapes identity before achievement. You cannot become something you have never allowed yourself to see internally. When you imagine yourself disciplined, confident, successful, and focused, you begin to subconsciously adjust how you carry yourself, how you speak, and how you make decisions. You start choosing differently, not because someone forced you to, but because your inner picture no longer matches old habits. The gap between who you are and who you imagine yourself to be creates movement. Every breakthrough in history began as an idea that looked impossible at the time. The world did not change because people accepted reality. It changed because someone imagined something better and refused to let go of that vision. Imagination is the bridge between dissatisfaction and transformation. It is the reason discomfort eventually turns into determination instead of despair. When imagination is neglected, life becomes reactive. You respond to problems instead of designing solutions. You settle for survival instead of striving for growth. But when imagination is activated, life becomes intentional. You start living with direction instead of drifting. Even setbacks take on a different meaning because they are no longer signs to stop, but obstacles to navigate. Imagination is also deeply personal. No one else can fully see what you see or feel what you feel about your future. That is why validation cannot come from outside first. You must believe in your inner picture before the world recognizes it. The clearer your imagination becomes, the stronger your resilience grows, because you are no longer fighting just for today. You are protecting tomorrow. Your current situation is only a snapshot, not the full story of your life. It represents where you are standing, not how far you are capable of going. Too many people confuse temporary conditions with permanent identity, allowing a single season to define their entire future. Where you start does not determine where you finish, but if you believe that it does, you unconsciously lock yourself into limitations that were never meant to contain you. Circumstances have a way of speaking loudly, convincing you that what you see is all there is. Bills, responsibilities, setbacks, disappointments, and delays can create the illusion that progress has stopped. But movement does not always look like forward motion. Sometimes growth is internal, happening in ways that are not immediately visible. Just because things appear stagnant on the outside does not mean transformation is not taking place within you. Many people carry shame about where they are, and that shame becomes heavier than the situation itself. They compare their journey to others, measuring their worth by timelines that were never designed for them. Comparison distorts perspective. It causes you to overlook your own resilience, your survival, and the lessons you've gained along the way. The fact that you are still standing, still thinking, still hoping is evidence that your story is not finished. Your background, mistakes, and losses do not disqualify you from a better future. They prepare you for it. Every challenge carries information, and every setback builds awareness. What you've been through sharpens your understanding, strengthens your character, and equips you with insight that cannot be learned any other way. The very experiences you wish you could erase often become the foundation for your greatest growth. Being in a difficult place does not mean you made the wrong choices. Sometimes it means you had the courage to try. Failure is not a dead end, it is a redirect. When you understand this, you stop seeing obstacles as punishment and start recognizing them as instruction. Each challenge refines your judgment, teaching you what works, what doesn't, and what you are truly capable of handling. Your present circumstances are not a reflection of your value. They are conditions, not conclusions. You are not behind, you are becoming. Life unfolds in stages, and each stage demands something different from you. Some seasons are about planting, some are about waiting, and others are about harvesting. If you try to harvest in a season of preparation, frustration is guaranteed. Growth often feels uncomfortable because it requires release. Old identities, outdated beliefs, and familiar patterns must be left behind to make room for something new. Holding on to who you used to be while trying to step into who you are becoming creates resistance. Acceptance of where you are right now is not surrender, it is clarity. From clarity comes strategy, and from strategy comes progress. When you stop treating your current situation as a life sentence, you regain your power. You begin to ask better questions, make wiser choices, and move with intention instead of desperation. The moment you realize that this chapter is temporary, your mindset shifts from survival to preparation, and preparation is always the doorway to elevation. The ability to imagine something greater for your life is not accidental. It is not random, and it is not a tease. If a vision keeps returning to your mind, it is because it belongs to you in some form. People do not dream about lives they are completely incapable of living. The very fact that you can see yourself achieving more, becoming better, and rising higher is evidence that the potential already exists within you. Imagination acts like an internal compass. It points you toward what aligns with your true capacity. When you imagine a better future, it is not escape, it is direction. That inner picture shows you what your spirit recognizes as possible, even if your current reality has not caught up yet. Many people silence that voice too early, dismissing it as unrealistic or impractical, when in truth it is the most honest part of them speaking. There is a difference between fantasy and vision. Fantasy has no intention of action, while vision demands movement. A vision keeps you restless. It makes you dissatisfied with settling. It creates an inner tension between where you are and where you believe you should be. That tension is not meant to frustrate you, it is meant to push you forward. When you ignore it, life feels heavy and unfulfilling. When you honor it, purpose begins to take shape. Every meaningful pursuit begins with awareness. Before you ever change your habits, you must first change your expectations. Imagination raises those expectations by allowing you to mentally experience a better outcome before it exists. This mental rehearsal conditions your mind to accept success as normal rather than impossible. Over time, what once felt unreachable begins to feel necessary. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It tells you to stay practical, to avoid disappointment, to protect yourself from failure. But fear has no interest in your growth. It only wants familiarity. Imagination challenges fear by introducing possibilities beyond comfort. It invites you to step into uncertainty with intention rather than avoidance. Growth does not happen in safety, it happens in expansion. Pursuing what you imagine does not require certainty, only commitment. You are not expected to know every step, only to take the next one. Clarity comes through movement, not waiting. Each action sharpens the vision, revealing what works and what must be adjusted. Momentum builds not from confidence, but from consistency. The dreams that persist within you often come with resistance because they demand transformation. They require you to let go of limiting beliefs, unhealthy attachments, and outdated versions of yourself. This inner resistance is not a sign to stop. It is confirmation that something significant is at stake. If the vision did not matter, it would not challenge you so deeply. Imagination also carries responsibility. Once you see what is possible, you can no longer pretend you are unaware. You either move toward it or live with the discomfort of ignoring it. That discomfort grows over time, turning into regret if left unaddressed. The vision is not there to torment you, but to call you forward. What you imagine consistently shapes what you pursue daily. Thoughts become focus, focus becomes behavior, and behavior becomes outcome. When you align your actions with the life you see internally, effort gains meaning, sacrifice gains purpose, and discipline becomes easier to sustain. Belief always comes before proof. Every meaningful change in life requires a decision to trust something you cannot yet see. Waiting for evidence before believing keeps you trapped in the same cycle, because evidence only appears after movement has already begun. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to move forward despite uncertainty. Those who wait until everything makes sense rarely move at all. Most people are taught to rely on logic, data, and visible confirmation. While these tools have their place, they cannot lead you into new territory. Logic explains what already exists. Belief creates space for what does not yet exist. When you step into unfamiliar ground, there are no guarantees, only direction. That is where belief becomes essential. It bridges the gap between intention and reality. Doubt often sounds reasonable. It asks questions that seem practical, but its underlying purpose is protection, not progress. It reminds you of past failures, limited resources, and the opinions of others. It warns you of embarrassment and loss, but playing safe has a cost. It slowly erodes confidence and replaces potential with regret. Belief challenges doubt by choosing possibility over comfort. Believing without evidence requires inner strength because external validation is absent. No applause, no reassurance, no confirmation. In these moments, belief must be self-sustained. You must become your own encouragement, reinforcing your vision when no one else understands it. This internal support system becomes crucial during early stages when progress is invisible and effort feels unrewarded. Faith-driven action reshapes perception. Once you commit to belief, your awareness sharpens. You begin to notice opportunities you once overlooked. You become more attentive to lessons, more receptive to growth, and more resilient in the face of obstacles. What once appeared as coincidence begins to look like alignment. Movement clarifies purpose. Belief also influences behavior. When you truly believe in an outcome, you naturally adjust how you invest your time and energy. You prepare for success before it arrives. You develop skills in advance. You show up consistently not because results are guaranteed, but because belief demands responsibility. Preparation becomes an act of trust. Fear does not disappear when belief enters. It becomes manageable. Courage is not the elimination of fear, but the willingness to act alongside it. Those who accomplish meaningful goals often feel fear just as intensely as anyone else. The difference is that belief gives fear less authority. Fear becomes a signal of growth rather than a reason to stop. Belief without action is passive, but action without belief is exhausting. When belief fuels action, effort feels purposeful rather than forced. You understand why the struggle is necessary. You accept delays without quitting because your confidence is anchored internally, not dependent on quick outcomes. The path forward is rarely clear at the beginning. Belief does not illuminate the entire journey, it reveals only the next step. Expecting full clarity before moving leads to paralysis. Progress requires trust in gradual understanding. Each step taken in belief expands awareness, creating a clearer view of what comes next. Those who wait for proof surrender their future to chance. Those who believe first shape their future intentionally. The willingness to trust the unseen transforms uncertainty into momentum and turns hesitation into forward motion. Imagination is not meant to stay locked inside the mind. It is meant to shape how you live. When a vision becomes clear, it begins to influence your daily behavior in subtle but powerful ways. The way you wake up, the way you spend your time, the way you respond to challenges all begin to shift when your imagination is actively engaged. Vision creates direction, and direction demands discipline. Discipline is often misunderstood as punishment or restriction, but in truth it is alignment. It is the practice of choosing actions that match the future you see. When imagination is strong, discipline feels purposeful rather than forced. You stop asking whether something is easy or comfortable and start asking whether it moves you closer to what you envision. That shift alone changes everything. Imagination raises your standards. Once you see yourself at a higher level, it becomes harder to tolerate habits that contradict that image. Procrastination becomes uncomfortable. Excuses feel hollow. Wasted time starts to feel expensive, not because someone is watching, but because your inner vision is holding you accountable. You begin to self-correct, not out of guilt, but out of respect for what you are trying to build. Consistency grows naturally when imagination is nurtured. Repetition no longer feels meaningless because every action carries purpose. Even small efforts take on value because they connect to a larger picture. This connection is what sustains long-term effort. Motivation may fade, but discipline rooted in vision endures. You continue showing up even on uninspired days because the outcome matters more than the mood. Imagination also reshapes how you handle setbacks. Instead of interpreting obstacles as signs of failure, you see them as part of the process. The vision remains intact even when progress slows. This perspective prevents emotional burnout. You recover faster, adjust strategies, and keep moving forward because your focus is on the destination, not the discomfort of the moment. As discipline strengthens, action becomes intentional. You stop reacting impulsively and start acting deliberately. Decisions are filtered through the question of alignment. Does this choice support the future I imagine, or does it distract from it? This level of clarity reduces inner conflict and increases confidence, because your actions are no longer random. They are connected. Over time, repeated disciplined actions compound into visible results. Growth may be gradual, but it is steady. Skills improve, confidence deepens, progress becomes undeniable. What once required effort begins to feel natural because the behavior has been reinforced through consistency. Discipline turns imagination into habit, and habit turns effort into identity. Imagination-driven discipline also influences how you engage with others. You become more selective with your environment, understanding that energy, conversations, and influences matter. You seek spaces that support growth and distance yourself from patterns that drain focus. This is not isolation, it is protection of purpose. When imagination fuels discipline, effort gains meaning. Sacrifice feels intentional rather than burdensome. Late nights, early mornings, and uncomfortable decisions are no longer seen as losses, but investment. You understand what you are working toward, and that understanding makes the journey sustainable. Action fueled by imagination is not rushed, but it is persistent. You move with patience, trusting the process while remaining committed to progress. Each step reinforces belief, strengthens discipline, and brings the vision closer to reality. Vision without movement remains only a thought. Action is the force that gives imagination weight and presence in the real world. Many people hold powerful ideas and clear dreams, but hesitation keeps those dreams suspended in the mind. The difference between those who progress and those who stay stuck is not intelligence or talent, but the willingness to act before feeling fully ready. Action does not require certainty, it requires decision. Waiting until confidence arrives often leads to endless delay, because confidence is built through experience, not before it. Each step taken, no matter how small, creates evidence that forward motion is possible. Momentum begins quietly, often unnoticed, but it grows with consistency. Fear frequently accompanies action, especially when stepping into unfamiliar territory. Fear is not a signal to stop. It is an indication that growth is occurring. When you act despite fear, you train your mind to trust your ability to adapt. Courage develops through repetition. The more you move, the less authority fear holds over your choices. Action transforms ideas into learning. Thinking provides direction, but doing provides clarity. Through action, you discover what works and what needs adjustment. Mistakes become information rather than failure. Each attempt refines understanding, strengthening your approach over time. Progress favors those who are willing to learn through movement rather than perfection. Consistency matters more than intensity. Grand efforts made occasionally do not compare to steady actions taken daily. Small steps, when repeated, accumulate into significant change. Action anchors imagination to reality, ensuring that dreams are not abandoned during moments of doubt or distraction. Movement also changes self-perception. When you take action, you begin to see yourself differently. You no longer identify as someone who hopes or wishes, but as someone who participates. This shift in identity strengthens commitment. You start to trust yourself more because you see proof of effort, even when results are still developing. Action invites accountability. Once you move, you become responsible for what follows. This responsibility sharpens focus and encourages growth. You pay closer attention to your habits, time, and decisions because you are invested in the outcome. Ownership replaces passivity, and with ownership comes power. Taking action also influences your environment. Effort creates visibility. Opportunities tend to appear once movement begins, not before. People respond to energy and commitment. When you act, you signal seriousness, opening doors that remain closed to those who only plan. Action creates alignment between intention and opportunity. Resistance often appears after the first step. Discomfort, doubt, and fatigue attempt to pull you back into an action. Persistence through this phase is crucial. The early stages of action are the most vulnerable, but also the most transformative. Pushing through resistance builds resilience and strengthens discipline. As action becomes habitual, progress accelerates. What once felt difficult becomes familiar. Systems replace struggle. Rhythm replaces chaos. The vision that once felt distant begins to take shape through accumulated effort. Action grounds imagination, turning possibility into experience and belief into measurable progress.